What's up guys, Christian here with Ford Momentum. You can see my 1998 Lexus GS400 sitting next to me. This car has been extensively modified, but that is not the point of today's episode. Today, I'm going to walk you through a budget-minded approach to the top 5 mods that I would do if I had a car sitting in my garage right now that was unmodified but mechanically sound. First and foremost, I'm going to make sure that I have good wheels and tires. I don't recommend running reps because people give you a really hard time for it. I'm also not going to criticize you if you run reps. If you're taking a budget-minded approach, you can run the stock wheel and tire setup if you want to, or you can go with other OEM takeoffs. I think OEM takeoffs are actually a pretty good option. I really like the Z wheels that are in 18x9, I believe, with a very low offset, which pushes them out. These GS350 wheels here, which aren't my favorite, but I got all 4 of them for 200 bucks. All 4 wheels with 62 miles on them for $200 US. I had to put tires on it. But if you find takeoffs with wheels and tires both, you're probably looking somewhere in the $400 to $600 range, which is absolutely affordable for most people. First and foremost, wheels and tires is because when we do the next mod, we need to make sure that we've got our fitment correct. We've got to be careful of rubbing. We've got to be careful of just the overall look of the vehicle. I am looking for Z wheels. I want to run a squared setup, so I want to run all the rears. The Z wheels are great. So if you can find a set of Z wheels, I think they're called the anniversary wheels. They also have some infinity wheels that are forged by Rays. Those are pretty cool. There's some options out there. I don't encourage you to switch over to Nissan or other brands, but sometimes that's the only choice we're left with. If you do go with aftermarket or maybe even your existing wheels, you can go with black lug nuts and also a black center cap, which are very, very cheap and affordable, and they really change the look of the wheel, I think. I think it gave it a modern touch. You can see my big brake kit. I did cover it in a previous episode. I don't think that you need it for performance. I did it just because of convenience and my friend sent me the stuff. And I do recommend it, yes, but I'm not going to put it in this budget episode because I don't think it's entirely necessary. So anyway, back to the wheels. Yeah, change the center cap to black if you wish, or whatever color you like. And also you can change the lug nuts for cheap, and it really does change the overall look of the wheel. So I include that in my wheel category. These GS's, for example, the offset on this particular wheel, the GS350 wheel, I think was fairly high. I want to say 42. And that results in the wheel being this way, inside the fender. So I'm actually running a 25mm H&R spacer in the rear, and you can see that the, I'm gonna say gap this way, is not terrible, and that's because I'm running a spacer. If I took that spacer off, you would see that wheel go in about 1 inch. And I really don't like that look. Part of mod number 1 and for a budget-minded approach would be the wheels and tires, and also considering a spacer. I will put that in the same category, spacer or spacers. So you might want to run some spacers on the front, which I do not. And then if you want to fill the gap of the rear of your car, if it's bad, depending on what you drive, you can do it with spacers, and I've been running those spacers for about a decade now with no issues. Mod number 2 with a budget-minded approach would be a different suspension. That will not only make the car look better, but it will potentially make the car handle better. You can see that my car is not that low. I chose to go with more of an OEM Plus look. What you have is you have about a 1.2 inch rear drop and about a 1.9 inch front drop for a bit of a raked look. Now I wish my car was a little bit tighter and a little bit lower. It's not super low, it looks okay. But this would be a budget-minded approach. That would be to get some springs and to get some decent struts. You could also consider using the stock struts if they're in good condition for a very subtle lowering job. This car probably would have handled the tine springs that I run, which are very soft and keep a luxury ride. They're not jarring, they're not bouncy. I have very little NVH coming into the cabin as a result of them. Or considering some entry-level coilovers. I have no experience on this car with entry-level coilovers, but I do have experience with entry-level coilovers on our EP3, which has Raceland coilovers in it. There's really no reason, because on the Civic, it's already a pretty bouncy ride. The Racelands actually worked out great on that particular car. On this one, there's just raging debate about coilovers. People are like, don't ruin it, don't get cheap coilovers.
Don't you ever say I did.
The cheapest you should consider are potentially Rev 9s with 32-way adjustable dampening. Then there's people that say only go Tine. They have 3 different models, I believe, for our car, and you're gonna range anywhere from springs on the stock struts for about $250, that's you installing them, all the way to $750 or so for Tine coilovers. So it really depends on what your budget is, and I'm gonna say budget-minded approach would be springs and new struts, which will run you somewhere in the $500 to $600 range, but you're getting into Rev 9 territory. You could potentially do Rev 9 coilovers for about $530, and these prices are all July of 2025. That is my next recommendation, is to work on the suspension a bit. Because this is a budget episode, I'm gonna say go with coilovers if you can. Even consider getting some used ones on the market, and you're probably going to be $500 to $750 for coilovers. That's recommendation number 2. Number 3, guys, I'm going with tint. I have a 35% tint job on this car. It was done many, many years ago. It was a good, high quality job using high quality film, so I have no bubbles or other issues. It does get darker over time. Luckily, I park mine in the garage, but if you park yours outside, you got to be careful, because if you get right on the edge of legality, you might get harassed by the police, or you might not pass your inspection. I think it looks really good on these cars. It also looks good on most cars. Tint is going to run you somewhere, depends on who you know, what town you live in, it's going to run you somewhere in the $250 to $500 range, depending on what you get. These cars tend to be a pretty easy job, but they do have a fair amount of windows in comparison to like a coupe or something like that. I did not get a windshield banner for the tint job. These have this bluish tint already built into the windshield, and then the factory sunroof already had a bit of a tint to it. Number 2 or number 3, depending on how you're counting and how you did mod number 1, would be tint for me. Next up, for budget-minded mod that makes a huge difference, I'm gonna go with a front chin spoiler, or lip as some people call them. I have an episode on this that covers how to prep it and paint it, and how to get it on the car and looking proper. This one over time has definitely taken a beating from rocks on the road and other things, so it needs to be repainted. You probably can't see it in the video, but I really think that at least on this particular car, that a chin spoiler or lip actually completes the front end really, really nicely. Before, had a bit of a space there. It almost seemed like something was missing, and I feel like these TTE rep lips look the best. That's just my opinion. I feel like it's a worthwhile mod. The total cost with paint and everything in July of 2025 is going to be roughly $125 to $150, depending on what kind of paint you use and all that. So that's really not a big investment for a nice look on the car. Again, I have episodes on this, on how to do it. I have episodes on some mistakes I made when trying to do this. So I encourage you to go back and check out those episodes if you're interested in this sort of mod. Change out those exhaust tips and potentially include in this category messing with the muffler location. The thing that I found on this particular car anyway is that it flows really, really well from the factory. There's not a huge need to be changing all the piping out for a stock engine. Now, once I went forced induction and all that, the game changes a little bit. So that being said, the stock oval tips on these are extraordinarily ugly in my opinion. But what you'll find is that exhaust tips are extremely expensive for decent ones. Now the exception to that is what you see here. I did an episode on this as well. These are Dodge Ram truck tips and they fit perfectly. They're 4.5 inches, slanted, double walled, and they look absolutely amazing in the opening that we have on both sides on this particular car anyway. This last budget-minded approach is going to be sound from the exhaust. And looked from the tip or from the rear of the car. Again, would only mess with the muffler locations on these cars. I would not mess with the resonators, the pipe size. If you're running a stock car, if you have a stock car and you're just building it and just starting out, and you're not forced induction or doing anything crazy, my recommendation is to get the stock mufflers out by a muffler shop or yourself, and then to weld in according to your sound tastes. I always tell people, don't exceed your horsepower in sound. So if you have a 225 horsepower GS300, I don't think that you should straight pipe in the muffler locations. That's just my personal opinion. I think you should go for a sporty sound like a Borla Pro XS muffler or something like that. That sounds really good, a little bit sporty, it doesn't drone. And then if you run a bigger tip like the Dodge Ram tip, it looks better and it does actually increase the sound a touch. You can get Dodge Ram tips from junkyards. You can pick them up on eBay. They're actually quite affordable. So I'm going to call this with muffler change out. This model run you about $250 to $300. That's including the tips and that's including a welding shop doing it. It could bump from there depending on where you live and how much welding guys are charging to do a quick job like that. It could go from $250 up to $500 potentially. If you just want to change the look drastically, you can do the larger tips in the rear. And I really think that that's going to make a drastic difference in how your car looks and sounds. All right, guys, so this is a test episode. If you like it, I can tell by how many likes I get, by how many views I get. And if the budget-minded approach was a good one, I can do another episode on budget. I can go from 6 to 10 on the mod list. I can also do expensive mods. I can also do almost free mods. So there's a lot of option here that I can do in future episodes, but it'll all come down to views and likes and comments. By the way, comment down below if you would change the order of events on your particular taste or your car. Let us know. What would you do? This is just my experience over the past 30 years of modding cars. I do care about performance, but I figure the first 5 mods are going to assume that the car performs decently, and then after that I start getting into more stuff. So thanks for joining me. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, hit that like button, and let's see how this episode does, and I'll do more if you like this one. All right, guys, take care. See you on the next one.